If your subconscious could speak to you in words, not in flashes of emotion, or tension in your chest, or that repeating situation you keep falling into, what do you think it would say? Would it scream? Would it cry? Or would it simply whisper what it's been trying to tell you for years? I'm not trying to stop you, I'm trying to protect you. You see, we've been told that the subconscious is a set of limitations, that it's what holds us back, sabotages our progress, and repeats the past. But the truth is much more beautiful and more uncomfortable. The subconscious isn't your enemy. It's your most loyal witness. The part of you that never forgot what hurt. The part of you that still echoes the unresolved, the unseen, the unloved. And here's the quantum truth. The field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what your subconscious is broadcasting, constantly, consistently, and with perfect honesty. So while your conscious mind is trying to manifest abundance, love, purpose, your subconscious might still be holding the frequency of lack, rejection, and fear. Not because it wants to punish you, but because it remembers how that frequency once kept you safe. It remembers the moment you decided to stay quiet instead of speak. It remembers the time you dimmed your light to survive the room. It remembers the belief that being invisible was the only way to be accepted. And now, every time you try to break that pattern, every time you get close to something different, the subconscious pulls you back. Not because it hates your evolution, but because it fears you'll forget what once protected you. This video is a message, but not just from me. It's a decoding of the messages you've been sending yourself through your patterns, your pain, your pause. It's a guide to understanding why you've been stuck, even though you've done everything right. You've journaled, visualized, meditated. You've read the books, repeated the affirmations, listened to every quantum explanation of manifestation. And still you loop. Still you collapse right before it lands. Still you question yourself even while trying to vibrate at the highest frequency. If this is you, this is your video. In this video, we're going to explore why your subconscious isn't actually sabotaging you. It's communicating with you. Every hesitation, every loop, every time you pull back just before the leap, it's not failure, it's language. It's your system trying to tell you something you haven't fully heard yet. And the quantum field? It's not just reading your thoughts or your energy on the surface, whereas it's mirroring back your unresolved emotional signatures, the echoes of past experiences that still vibrate beneath the surface of your intentions. We'll talk about why fear and resistance almost always spike just before a breakthrough, and how that's not a sign that something's wrong, but that something is waking up. We'll go deep into what it truly means to break old patterns, not just mentally reframing them, but releasing their hold on your body, your nervous system, and your vibrational identity. And most importantly, we'll begin to understand how to tune your energetic signal not from a place of fear, but from the frequency of your future self. A place that feels grounded, embodied, and stable, not forced. You're going to see yourself differently by the end of this. Because this isn't about fixing you. It's about hearing the parts you've ignored and realizing they weren't holding you back. They were holding your attention until you were ready to listen. So before we move forward, I want you to ask yourself something, not from your mind, from your body, from the part of you that speaks in emotion. What pattern keeps showing up? Not because you're failing, but because it's still trying to say something. What keeps returning? Not to punish you, but to protect you from jumping too far, too fast without integration? That's where we begin. The subconscious doesn't speak in words. It speaks in memory, in rhythm, in patterns. It loops you through the same experiences not because you're cursed, not because you're weak, but because it's trying to keep you close to what's familiar. That's what safety has meant for most of your life. Familiarity. Even if what's familiar is pain, rejection, scarcity, or silence. To the subconscious, known is safe. And this is where the quantum field comes in. Because the field, like the subconscious, doesn't judge. It reflects. It takes the energetic signal you're broadcasting and responds in kind, amplifying whatever state your body and heart are most familiar with. This is one of the most misunderstood truths about manifestation. We think the universe is withholding, We think we're being tested or ignored. But in truth, the quantum field is profoundly loyal. It mirrors you with absolute accuracy. And if the subconscious is still anchored to old frequencies, the field will show you reflections of those frequencies again and again. That's not punishment. That's coherence. That's vibration made visible. That's energy-seeking resolution. According to Bruce Lipton, your subconscious is not just a mental structure, it's a biological one. Stored in your nervous system, in your cells, in your posture, your breath, your tone of voice. Everything you do is an extension of the patterns you've absorbed from childhood, culture, trauma, and repetition. And the field, as Deepak Chopra describes it, is a unified intelligence that responds to the language of feeling more than the language of thought. So when your body carries the vibration of abandonment, even if your mind is asking for love, the field feels the disconnect and echoes what's more deeply encoded. And yet, none of this is permanent. The beauty of the quantum field is that it's always available for retuning. Just as you can broadcast fear, you can broadcast trust. Just as you can repeat survival, you can radiate expansion. The signal can change, but only when you become aware of what it's currently saying. The issue is that most people try to override their subconscious with positive thinking. They slap affirmations over unresolved trauma. They meditate to escape their body instead of meet it. They visualize a future that they don't actually believe they deserve. And the field listens, not to your words, but to your resonance. Joe Dispenza teaches that the field responds to a coherent signal, one where thought, feeling, and action are aligned. And if your thoughts are saying abundance, but your emotions are still gripped by fear, and your body is contracting, in shame your signal is fragmented, incoherent, and the field can only mirror what is stable within you. So what do most people experience? The same kind of relationship over and over, the same moments of self-doubt, the same plateau in finances, the same inner voice saying, not yet, not enough, don't go too far. And they think they're broken, but what they really are is entangled, still connected vibrationally to a previous version of themselves, one that learned how to survive in limitation. The field doesn't hold you there. It just meets you there. Let's make this even clearer. Imagine the field as a frequency tuner. It doesn't care what you ask for. It locks onto what you are. So if your subconscious is looping on a belief, like good things never last, the field doesn't punish you. It shows you situations where good things begin and then slip away. Not because you're manifesting failure, but because you haven't shifted the deeper belief that keeps broadcasting instability. Now here's the invitation. What if that resistance you've been feeling isn't failure, but a message? What if those moments when you pull back aren't signs that you're weak, but signals that your field is trying to resolve something unresolved? What if the repetition is communication? The subconscious wants integration. It wants release. But it can't do that through suppression or control. It can only do that when you slow down enough to hear the vibration beneath the thought, and the field, in its infinite intelligence, will continue to bring you the same lesson until you respond, with a new signal, not from force but from recognition, from presence, from embodiment. So when life keeps offering you the same experience again and again, not because you want it but because you haven't yet fully heard it, it's not personal, it's not punishment, it's not sabotage, it's the most precise, compassionate reflection of what still needs your presence. Patterns don't repeat to trap you. They repeat to reveal what hasn't yet been seen through new eyes, felt through an open heart, or held without resistance. They come back not to break you down, but to break something open. Your subconscious isn't pulling you backwards to stop you. It's guiding you inward to retune you. Because once the message is heard, not just by your mind but by your entire field, you stop looping. The signal shifts. And when the signal shifts, so does your reality. There's a reason you feel the most fear, the most resistance, and the deepest doubt right before something finally changes. That intense internal contraction, that sudden wave of, maybe I'm not ready, that's not weakness. It's a sign that your system is recalibrating. Because when you start to break the vibrational agreement you've had with your past, when you stop resonating with the old frequency that once kept you safe, your subconscious doesn't just quietly step aside. It speaks up. Not to punish you, but to make sure you've really heard everything it tried to teach you. Every time you edge closer to the version of you who loves fully, creates freely, receives with ease, you can feel it. Something rises. The voice, the fear, the sensation in your chest that says, "Don't go there, it's not safe, that's not for you." And we often interpret that as a block. But what if that's not a block at all? What if that's the part of you that survived saying, "Are you sure we don't need this armor anymore?" We live in a culture obsessed with forward motion, with high vibration, constant growth, breaking through, leveling up. But we forget that real transformation doesn't only come from speeding ahead. It comes from turning around and collecting the pieces of ourselves we abandoned to survive. Your subconscious isn't trying to recreate the past. It's trying to complete it. And that final emotional wave before your breakthrough? That's your body discharging the very frequency that held you in place for so long. This is where most people loop. They mistake this emotional spike as proof they're failing or regressing, or that they're not aligned enough. So they backtrack. They re-enter the old relationship. They reattach to the old belief. They dim back down. And the loop continues, not because they're not capable of shifting, but because they misread the final signal as a warning instead of a release. Think of it like a quantum echo. As you move away from the old vibration and toward the new, the old frequency doesn't just vanish, it reverberates. It calls out to you one last time, not to drag you back, but to ask, "Have you truly outgrown me? Or am I still part of your identity?" And your answer isn't in your words. It's in what you choose next, in how you respond when everything in you wants to retreat to comfort, but something deeper in you knows that comfort is the cage. You're not just letting go of an external pattern. You're letting go of a version of you who built their world around that pattern. And grieving that version is part of the shift. Feeling the sadness, the hesitation, the shakiness of standing in new energy. That's not weakness. That's evidence that something real is happening. That your subconscious is being rewired not just intellectually but emotionally. That you're releasing the frequency, not just the memory. And the quantum field? It listens carefully in this moment. Because this is when your signal gets clearest. Not when you're chanting affirmations on a good day, but when you're in the middle of an old storm and you choose consciously not to collapse into the past again. That moment of choice, small, quiet, internal, sends a surge through the field. It tells the universe, this time I'm not reacting. This time I'm choosing from who I'm becoming. And the field responds in kind, not always instantly, not always with fireworks, but with alignment, precision, and expansion that matches your new coherence. So if you're feeling shaky, if you've been spiraling, if things feel emotionally heavier than usual, you might not be breaking down. You might be breaking through. Because the subconscious doesn't surrender easily. It asks you to prove, not with perfection, but with presence, that you're ready to live in a new frequency. And that proof isn't something you perform. It's something you embody. Now ask yourself, when I feel myself slipping back into the old story, what am I really being asked to listen to? What part of me is rising up, not to punish, but to be witnessed, to be honored, to be gently released? Because once you hear it clearly, it no longer has to repeat itself. The loop dissolves and you shift. The subconscious doesn't stop speaking just because we try to move on. It doesn't get quieter just because we've decided we're done with the past. In fact, the more you try to override it, the louder it becomes, not through words, but through emotion, through discomfort, through self-sabotage disguised as delay, doubt, or distraction. That's why healing isn't about shouting affirmations over the noise. It's about learning how to listen differently. Because underneath every recurring pattern is a question, and the moment you stop trying to fix it and instead start listening to it, everything begins to change. What if that doubt that hits you late at night isn't your enemy, but your younger self asking, will I still be loved if I succeed? What if that recurring resistance to receiving isn't because you're unworthy, but because a part of you still believes receiving means owing? What if the very things that keep you stuck are just stories waiting for acknowledgement? This is what Deepak Chopra refers to when he says that true transformation begins with awareness, not force. And it's echoed by Bruce Lipton when he reminds us that belief systems aren't just thoughts, they're biological imprints. They live in your nervous system, in your reactions, in your ability to stay still when discomfort arises. So if you want to change your outer world, it starts with how you meet your inner responses. The more you fight the resistance, the stronger it becomes. But when you meet it with presence, with breath, with awareness, and it softens. Because the subconscious is never screaming for change. It's whispering for connection. This is where quantum presence comes in. You don't collapse a new timeline by visualizing harder. You collapse it by standing fully in the energy of now, no matter how chaotic, messy, or emotionally charged it is. The version of you who lives your dream life doesn't avoid hard emotions. They've just learned to stay regulated inside them. They've stopped abandoning themselves when fear speaks. They've stopped rushing into survival mode when expansion triggers vulnerability. That's the real shift. Not avoiding discomfort, but no longer identifying with it. So how do you begin to retune your field when the signal is coming from a place you don't fully understand? Start simple. Pay attention to what keeps coming back, not just externally, but inside your body. What thought repeats when you take a risk? What emotion spikes when you get close to receiving something new? Where does tension show up when you try to rest? These aren't obstacles, they're messages. Each one is a frequency that's been waiting for your presence, not your perfection. Begin to meet those moments differently. Instead of reacting, observe. Instead of controlling, breathe. When a familiar discomfort rises, say to yourself, I hear you, you've kept me safe, but I'm choosing differently now. That internal dialogue becomes a new vibration, one that the field immediately registers. You're not forcing the shift. You're stabilizing it from within. Joe Dispenza often says that the moment you can observe a thought or emotion without becoming it, you are no longer in the past. You're in the quantum, the now. And from that space, new timelines become accessible, not just as concepts but as felt realities. But it requires something most people resist: patience, stillness, repetition, not of effort, but of return. Returning to your center every time the old frequency knocks on your door. Returning to your body when your mind wants to escape. Returning to truth when old fear tries to dress itself up as logic. Now I want you to try something. Take a moment. Breathe slowly. And ask yourself, what pattern keeps returning in my life? Not because I'm broken, but because it's asking to be broken, consciously, lovingly, and with reverence. If a word comes to you in just one, let it stay with you. That word is your signal. That word is the vibration that's asking for your presence. Maybe it's control, or worthiness, or forgiveness, or trust. There's no right answer, just honesty. And when you're ready, you can type that word in the comments, not to prove anything, but to declare silently that you're listening now, that you're ready to meet the message underneath the noise, not to fight it, but to finally integrate it, because once you do, you're no longer reacting to the subconscious, you're responding with awareness, and that's when the field responds differently too. There's something powerful that happens when you stop trying to become someone new, and instead start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. When you stop chasing quantum shifts like distant destinations and start realizing that they happen the moment you tune into the frequency of who you truly are. That's not poetic language, it's physics. Frequency precedes form. Emotion precedes outcome. Energy organizes matter, the version of you that you keep glimpsing in dreams and brief moments of clarity, in flashes of inner knowing. That version isn't fictional. It's not aspirational. It exists now. The only thing that keeps you from living in that reality fully is the signal you're still sending out. And now you understand where that signal comes from. Not your vision board, not your conscious desires, but from the emotional code your subconscious has been running since. You were too young to know you had a choice, but you have a choice now. You can choose to hear those patterns differently. You can choose to let your nervous system settle even when the mind is spinning. You can choose to show up for yourself in moments when the old you would have collapsed, retreated, or shrunk. And each one of those choices is a declaration to the field. I'm ready to stop repeating. I'm ready to start resonating. You don't need to control the quantum field. You're not here to manipulate it or trick it into giving you what you want. That's not how this works. The field doesn't speak force, it speaks coherence. And the more coherent your energy becomes, the more your heart, your mind, your body, and your actions speak the same language, the more the field responds in ways that feel effortless, aligned, and real. But coherence doesn't come from pretending everything is fine. It comes from feeling what's real and staying grounded in the truth that you are still safe, still whole, still worthy, even in the midst of uncertainty. That is what stabilizes your frequency. That's what creates the kind of inner resonance that the outer world can't help but reflect. And when the old patterns come knocking, because they will, you won't panic. You'll recognize them. You'll say, "Thank you for protecting me, but I don't live there anymore." And in that moment, something profound happens. Your subconscious no longer has to scream. The loop no longer has to repeat. The field no longer mirrors fear. Because the signal has changed. Because you've changed. You are the signal. And the field is always listening. So the real question becomes, will you choose to tune to it, fully, unapologetically, and consistently, until it becomes the most natural thing in the world? Because when you do, the quantum responds. Drop a word in the comments that describes your next shift. It can be trust and flow, release, or anything that feels right. Your word becomes part of your signal. And if this touched you, hit subscribe. Let's keep growing together. Not from a place of force, but from a place of alignment, curiosity, and real connection. You're not alone in this. This space was created to help you remember what you've always known. You are energy, you are possibility, and you are the field, in motion.